Good afternoon, everyone. It's morning here, by the way. And I'm excited to be here today to give you guys some pointers on applying for admission in the United States. And it's an interactive interactive session. So let's make it as interactive as possible. If you have questions or things that you'd like to or concerns, kind of put that in the chat. So feel free to talk. Let's converse as much as possible. So as the speaker has said, I'll just do a brief introduction of myself before going right into the topic of the day. Just let me share my screen. So I'm Aminat Ibrahim. I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate in Biomedical Engineering at Cornell University. I graduated in University of Ibrahim in 2018 and I went out to have like about 3 years work experience before going to grad school to further my studies. Currently working towards my PhD program. Recently earned my master's degree. So I don't want to bore you with with myself. So I'll just go right into the topic of today. So I just want you to think about Amina. She just graduated with a bachelor's degree, and she's really interested in grad school. So what steps do you think that she can take to commence a graduate school journey? I'm going to pull up a poll. Like I said, it's an interactive session. So I'm going to pull up a poll, and I want us to attempt to respond as short as possible. That could be done in like a couple of minutes. Okay. Apply. Interest, programs, properly based, review, necessary, possible, location, document, select, school. Okay. Let's keep that coming. Those are quite interesting answers. Just apply. I think I like this one. It's just like, just do it. Oh, someone is raising their hand. Okay. Okay. Once that 2 minutes is up, we have like about 30 seconds more. Apply. Okay. So I think majority of people are putting in apply. So which is taking, that's just a few more seconds. Apply, research. Okay. Schools. Okay. Select schools. Okay, I think we can close the poll right here. These are pretty interesting responses, actually. So I would just, okay, go back to our slide. So yeah, I think I like the fact that people just said, apply. But again, you don't just go to apply straight up. You have to do or take a bit of steps before you can start your application. So one of the things that you want to do is to highlight your courses. One of the things you want to do is to establish the kind of research interest that you have, because in this part of the world, they don't necessarily have to have it like, biomedical engineering. So you probably want to think about your research interests, what areas of research are you field? You can think about, maybe I'm trying to do some tissue engineering, some imaging, some instrumentation, like what exactly is the area that you're trying to get into? And again, are you targeting a particular tissue disease? Say, for example, if you're targeting something like lung disease, the heart disease, or the immune disease, like which of them are you trying to target? So you have to streamline that into, something that you want to do. So you keep that in mind. Then secondly, you also want to start familiarizing yourself with the state of art. So I know oftentimes people just start up and they're like, oh, I just want to apply, but they don't even have an idea of, what exactly is going on in the space that they're trying to get into. So the next thing you want to do is to identify the research gap. not just reading the journals. What about the gap? What gap have you identified, and which area are you looking to then key into when you're doing this? So this is probably one typical example of a review journal. And on Google, I just typed, oh, what are the next, state of arts in tissue engineering? And it just gives me something like this. So you want to have that, go through it to understand what exactly is going on. And with that, it gives you an idea of, okay, this is what researchers are currently doing in this space, and this is what I want to look into. It also gives you an idea of the kind of skills you're looking to probably acquire, or you need to acquire to, get into this kind of program. So I think review paper, I always strongly suggest review papers because it gives you, a very broad overview of the state of art. So the next thing is then we want to search for schools. Now I have an idea of the kind of research I'm trying to get into. I have an idea of the course. I have an idea of the research gap. What about the schools that I want to do? I want to attend. So you can use different websites like US News. So US News has like multiple schools that they also rank them in the United States. And some people also use College Board. And if you're looking to not just apply to schools in the United States, you can probably go into like Times Higher Education University ranking, which gives you a broader perspective of schools in China, Singapore, US, Canada. Like it just gives you a very broad overview. And the interesting thing about most of these websites is you can actually streamline them using different filters, put in your course, whatever course you're trying to do, and it just gives you like their ranking, the different programs that they offer, the different degree that they offer, and things like that. Then the next thing is you want to arrange them. If you're more interested in ranking, you want to arrange this schools in terms of their ranking. Then in terms of the kind of research that you're looking, now we've identified the research. So keeping that in mind, you're now thinking about, okay, I'm trying to check this school because of the research that they offer. What about funding, which is a very key thing especially for people in Nigeria, because not all of the schools will give you full funding. What kind of funding, you can filter all of those things. And in terms of location too, because in the United States, we have different locations. Some people are very close to the coastal area. Some people are like, their winter is like this freezing. So you want to be very careful. You want to be very careful when you are trying to apply to these regions. And some places are super hot. So you have to like take note of them. Then you've highlighted the schools. So this is a typical example of what they look like. So this is the left one, as you can see here, is from the World University rankings. And on it, you can easily change the, I was hoping to do a sort of live demo for us. So just we have an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so I can have US News, for example. Then I just go to US News and report. Then I said, I'm looking for PhD in biomedical engineering. So when I put that into the search engine, it gives me different options. So am I looking for the best biomedical engineering program? It gives me things like, discover the 11 best graduate BME program. It gives us different lists. Then I can say, okay, I'm just trying to get the 11 best in biomedical engineering. Sorry. I can look into the best BME program, and as you can see from here, I do have a list of different institutions, John Hopkins, Duke, and the rest of them. One interesting feature here is also that you can, save these schools. Then you can also compare schools. Then you can do some, if you're not in engineering, you can filter that and change your faculty. You can have like different changes that you want to make to this one, just filter it out so it can give you the best that you're looking out for. So that's for the US news, and we also have other ones like I mentioned, but US news is more to United States, and World University is just very, very broad. So after that, we want to look into our application requirements. Now I've listed them out. So the first thing you see here is you need to create an Excel sheet. So a lot of us, we when we're trying to start our application, we just have schools or things, one Togo, one Ghana. See, you have to.
Sorry.
You what? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Sorry about that.
Okay. So you, instead of having different information everywhere, you want to, some people will keep one Togo, one Ghana. Instead of doing that, you need an Excel sheet to populate everything that you're trying to work on. And, you keep this Excel sheet to take note of things and keep track. You can also color code them as beautiful as you want. This is all based on you. But what exactly are we trying to take notes in this Excel sheet? So you're checking the university, right? You're checking the department's websites. Probably you've not gotten to that yet, but after highlighting your universities, you probably and you've highlighted maybe 10 of them. Then for each school that you've highlighted, check their departmental website. They offer what you're trying to study. We've already established that with US News. That's a beautiful one. Then on the website, that's the department website. What funding do they have for you? They will always have it there. What's the admission criteria? The requirements of, okay, maybe they require a transcript, those things that they need. What exactly do they have on their website? Then on some as well, or in the university website, you see that they offer fee waiver, like application fee waiver for international students or people coming from developing countries. Then again, they write it boldly on their website that this is our application deadline. Some will put it there that we have an early admission, and we'll have like a normal admission time point. So you have to be very careful and you have to be very certain of those deadlines. These are things you're putting down in your Excel sheet. You have, do they offer funding? Yes, full funding. You have it there. No, partial funding. You have it on your Excel sheet. What's the admission criteria? What do they offer fee waiver? Yes, no. What do I need to get that fee waiver? Do I need to email them? Yes, you have it there. What's the application deadline? This date to this date. Do I have early admission? Yes. What date is it? You put it there. So you're populating your Excel sheet based on all of these information. Then in the application requirements or in the admission requirement, what GPs are they looking at? Some will state it on their website that it is minimum of 3.5 GP and above. So when you see that, you want to note it on your Excel sheet. This school requires 3.5 GPA. What's the letter of recommend? Do they require letter of recommendation? If yes, how many? You will write it there. I need 3 for this school. What about my CV? They also want you to include your CV. You have it there, your SOP, and your standardized tests. So this is very subjective because in the United States for right now, most of the schools are now canceling GRE, especially in biomedical field. They've canceled that for most of our program. And I think after I got here, they also canceled the IELTS requirements for English. So we're really good on that front. So I think you have to also ascertain not all schools do that. And you have to also ascertain that, okay, this school do not require me to submit a GRE. They require IELTS. In some situations, some of the schools will, really tell you that they want IELTS. But one thing that you can do is to probably email them later on to ask if that can be waived for you because you were taught in English. You came from a country where it is, it's an English-speaking country and all of those things. Then on this website, we're still, going through the same website. What about the faculties? We've identified the research. Now, what faculties? That's the professors, as we call them in Nigeria, the lecturers that are in this space doing research, active research in this space. You also want to note that down. On one of the columns, just have faculties. You list their names, that these are the potential guys that I'm trying to look into. And not just list their name, you try to read a little bit about them. Like, this is what they do. This is their research. So one thing I always say is, graduate school application is a full-time job on its own. So you cannot take your shortcut and say, oh, this is it. See, for somebody, and ask yourself as well, if I have $100,000 US, can I just give it to somebody, that is not able to prove themselves? Of course, no. None of us will be able to do that. So you are trying to get funding from some set of people, and they have to be sure that you are bankable, that you're a bankable person. So in order for them to be certain that you are bankable, you have to take your time to comb through all these websites, all this information. It takes a lot of time, which I quite understand, but it's something that when it comes out, eventually you'll be very proud of yourself that you did. So one next thing that you want to also look into is, excuse me, when I was talking about funding, you also want to be sure if it is a teaching assistant role or a research assistant role or a fellowship, like what format is that funding coming in? So for teaching assistant role, I know you guys might have, been accustomed to this already, but for teaching assistantship role, you have to TA, which means you have to teach, and that can also have a different requirement. For research assistant role, which means you'll be doing research, active research. For fellowship, it means that you probably, for that semester, you probably, just be enjoying yourself, as they can put it. Just not really you'll be doing research, but you're not funded by that research. So the next thing, and this is one key thing that people, especially our people, they don't really take cognizance of, which is frequently asked questions. See, if you've not been doing it before, I recommend to you today that in any application that you're doing, always check frequently asked questions, because there's some information that you probably not find on their website, but it's embedded in that frequently asked questions. So take your time, go through all of those questions, see the responses to that, because it wouldn't make sense that if you're trying to get funding from somebody, they have all of this information on their website. Some of them are embedded in the frequently asked question. Then you're not emailing them again to ask the same question. It's like you've not done your due diligence to say that, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. So yeah, that's one thing I would recommend. And lastly, I understand, the dynamics in regions and places that we come from, but in this part of the world, they appreciate getting yourself out there, like letting yourself to be known. And in this sense, emailing and contacting director of graduate studies, graduate field assistants, those people are there to help you. And if you're not making use of those resources, then that's not a good one. So one thing you want to really do is to make utmost use of these resources, and email these people, introduce yourself. I'm a prospective student coming into your program, and I would like to have some social information or social detail. Get yourself accustomed to this culture of asking questions, and not just asking questions, sending emails. I know a lot of people have this phobia of sending emails to people. Again, have it in mind that these people, they will really answer your questions. They take their time to answer your questions. They're very, that's what they're being more or less being paid to do. So you have to put all of those things into place. So in order to do a practical example, I'll be going through this website again. Like I said, it's an interactive section. So if you have questions, note them down. I can always take questions at the end of this webinar. And I also want to do some really live demos. So it won't be like, oh, we're just learning theory, we're not learning practical. We're going through all of these things step by step as it goes. So I'm just gonna copy this website, or maybe not copy it and just start over again. So now I've identified Cornell University. Then I said biomedical engineering. Cornell University. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. So I see this, then I click on it. It brings me to this wonderful website, which is, oh, this is Cornell University. This is what it has. Okay, this is biomedical engineering. So it brought me directly.
Sorry, we can see your screen, but it seems it's quite slow. Like,
oh, it's lagging.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we'll see how we can go through that. So I'm currently on the biomedical engineering website of this institution, and they have different programs. As you can see, they have undergraduate programs, graduate programs, and different things. I'm interested in their graduate programs, their graduate program, and I just clicked on that, and I want to see, oh, okay, what do they offer? They offer Masters of Engineering and a Doctor of Philosophy, which is a PhD in the field. Okay. What else do I need to do? I'm trying to see, what about the PhD program interests me. Let me click into it. Okay, so I see their PhD program. They have different area of research, as you can see from this link below, by the side here. Then I see admission requirements. I have to go to the graduate school's website. Okay. They also state here that GRE, they no longer require GRE. Is well stated. Okay, let me go to their research areas, because again, I've already picked a few research areas, about 3 of them that I'm looking to key into. They have biomechanics and mechanobiology. When I click on that, it takes me to whatever research and the faculties, which are the professors in this field, right? Okay, what about biomedical imaging and instrumentation? They also have that. So maybe before this, I had already highlighted maybe 3 different research areas. So now that I'm clicking, oh, they have nanomedicine, I guess I can just go into nanomedicine, look at what they do, this kind of research they offer, and the likes. Okay, so now I see different research areas that I probably would like to key into. Then what about the people that I'll be working with in terms of research? I want to click on the faculty. Let me see their faculty and, know the kind of things that they do. The good thing about these websites is that apart from having their names, they also give you their email address. So you can always email to ask questions if you have any. So I see these professors that are really into the field. And I said, okay, maybe I'm interested in this professor. Then I click on a page. Then they give me a biography, right? And they give me a research interest. And this is what some of our research interests. Okay, this is pretty interesting. But I don't see here that she designs and teaches. If you can see what I'm saying here. So she designs and teaches, which means she may not necessarily be a research professor, but I'm not particularly sure about that yet. So, okay, I'll just go back, look for another professor. These are his research interests, research areas. Okay. They have it has a lab, and his lab has a website. I click on that, and this is what they do in his lab. And I see a lot of computational imaging, optical coherence. It just gave me an idea of, oh, this person has a lab, and this is, excuse me, the kind of research they do in his lab. And when I go further into their lab, in his lab, his lab websites, I see the people in the lab, the publications, some of their work, some of the things that they've done. It gives me a bunch of information. And I just noted that, okay, I want to work with this man. And yeah, the next thing I look for the next person. So probably get about 3 to 4 people, 4 options in this particular school. So now I have a research area. I have a faculty that I'm interested in. But one thing I'm yet to see is funding. So going back to the first page, I see PhD program, I see PhD requirements. Okay. Then they said, for an application fee waiver, please send an email to so person. And the application process is entirely online via this website. You click on it just to have an idea of whatever it is. Then apply now. It said you get started by doing apply web and all of those things. You sign an online application, but I'm not ready to apply yet because I still need to know if they have funding or not. So, but this page is giving you an idea of the degree requirements. That's the degree requirements means that if peradventure I got into the school, these are the things that I need to do before I can earn this degree. So you have to read some of these as well. Then interestingly, I can see that for some of their coursework, which are, if peradventure I got into it, I'll be learning some things like, some of the courses I'll be learning. And this is looking like an Imagine program, which was something that actually interested me when I was trying to apply for my program. I was like, okay, this is a clinical practice. That's an interesting one. It's something that I really, really want to do. And take note of this page because it's going to be really essential when you're trying to write your SOP. So after that, they already told me that I can email this person for more information. Okay, so let's get out of here. What about the requirements? Oops, sorry, we just got back from there. Excuse me. Financial aid. Okay, do these people offer funding, which is the most important thing to all of us? They said all PhD students are fully funded with tuition, stipend, and health insurance. Okay, that's an interesting one. So you can also click on this financial aid to see some other funding that is supported by the school. And on the school website, you can see assistantships and fellowships. You want to click on all of these things to know which, if for example, you qualify for a fellowship, because for some fellowships, they will ask you to submit some additional documentation. So you want to take note of that. Then these are also some other external funding or supports for like loans and the likes. Then there's also the fellowship, the school fellowship in support of diversity. So I think for this application, they usually have a question on diversity. Okay, so now I think pretty much we've gone through most of the requirements, the funding and everything. Then frequently asked questions, which was the one I said we should always try to check. If you have additional questions, message this person, which happens to be the Graduate Student Service Coordinator. Then, do they have qualifying exam? When did they select faculty advisor, special committee, this, yada, yada, yada. How many, this is very important. Very important because you know that they only admit 20 students per year. That's on the max. And you should know by now that this will be a very, very competitive program. So yeah, pretty much that is how to come through a website. And I think they also have a handbook just to give you an idea of some of the detailed requirements that we saw here. Okay, so I'm just gonna close it right here and we can move to the next thing. So now we have the websites, we have our Excel sheets, we've noted what we want to note, so we just need to move forward on that. Now that we have all of these requirements, everything is set, so let's start firing on and let's go to the next thing. So the first thing is your application documents, which you've written on the Excel sheet. Some of them will ask you for a transcript, or you definitely submit your transcript, not even some of them. And you're also trying to ask for a fee waiver. I mean, if you can afford it without asking for a fee waiver, that's absolutely fine. But for some people, understanding the dynamics of things in Nigeria or wherever you're zooming in from, we understand that it can be really expensive. So you want to ask for a waiver. So on the website, we had seen that they said the issue waiver for the particular example that we used, a particular case study. Then you want to explain in your waiver, you want to tell them what's your situation. Why are you even applying for this waiver? And I think that's where a lot of people just, want to just give up because they're like, oh, how do I start emailing people? No. It's okay to email them. And for the fee waiver, different school have like different approach. So some people will ask you to email them. Some people will give you a link on their website. Just click the link and state your case and the like. So I'll give you a typical example of when I was trying to apply. This was in when I was trying to make my application to Boston University. And I just explained to them that my application with fee waiver is premised on the following factors. I'm a low-income first-generation college student. The exchange rate was very high at the time. So my parents are retired, so I need daily expenses, so I can, contribute to my brother, blah, blah, blah. And because of this, I'm hoping that I could get a waiver for this particular application. And to be honest, most of these things work because out of my applications, I think I only paid for one application. The rest gave me waivers, and that one I could have left it, but because I was really interested in that school, that was why I just said, okay, that's fine. I'll just pay that money, and it was not, excessive at the time. So that's one thing you also want to do. So the next thing is your CV. And to be honest, I think most people, when they want to start application like that, I see a lot of people start first with the CV. That is not supposed to be the first step you take. And I believe most people on this chat will understand now why they're not supposed to do it that way, or why it's better to do it, using this approach. So your CV, on your CV, what do you want to have on your CV? You talk about your academic achievements, your internships, your research skills, all the skills that you have, your projects. So one mistake people make is they just have a generic CV for all of their application. But when you observe here, when I was showing you the website, each faculty have different area of research. So for example, I have a research interest, or I'm trying to go into tissue engineering, for example. I'm also interested in imaging. I cannot use the CV for tissue engineering for imaging. I need to use one that is peculiar to tissue engineering. So you have to tailor your CV. I'm not saying you should state here who you'll be working with or who you're interested in working with, but it's really good to just state here, the kind of research that you're trying to do. And, I think at the time I had like bunch of CVs to different applications. And after that, I just tailor them in one way or the other to the specific application. So I think one time like that, there was a question about, oh, should I include my date of birth, everything on my CV? It's outright no. Capital no. Do not do that unless otherwise stated. I know in some EU countries, they probably ask you to do that, but in the United States, we do not do that. So do not use your bio, in fact, on your CV, well, sometimes they might want to mail you directly. Maybe that's the only reason you can keep your full address, but I wouldn't even recommend putting my full address. I just try to use my city and the country. Moreover, nobody even mails you document directly these days anymore. Most people use emails. Unless for some particular document. So you want to add your education. Highlight your education. I know they've done a lot of workshop on CV and SOP, so I'm not really going too deep into some of these things. I'm just giving you an overview of how that should look like. Then if you have projects, you could include that. Do not include pictures. We're not interested in how you look. Just give us your name and I'll show you a typical example of how it should look like. Then it should be in bullet point form, in bullet points format, not the prose format. So because some people will keep writing story. No, your SOP is meant for story. Your CV should be bullet pointed or should be bulleted. Then when you're writing each of your bullet points, so a lot of the time I see bullet points and I'm lost, like what exactly is this person trying to communicate? So I should be able to infer a lot of things from each of your bullet points. Well, for example, you should be answering the question of what you did, why you did it, how you did it, and not in a very long format. Like I said, it has to be very short, precise, and concise. So for example, if I'm designing a website, or if I designed a website for a particular application, I can say design so website using Fiji
or sorry, using what's the one they use for that website? Let's say Canva, and this is for probably mobile phone application. Like with that, you see that it's just one line, very short, but there I've been able to tell you what I did, which was I designed something. I designed a website. What skill did I use? That's showing how I did it. I used Canva. And then lastly, for what reason or why did I even do that? For it's a mobile, whatever application platform. So that one line alone has given me multiple responses to a lot of questions that people might ask. And again, for under a particular section, work experience or a project or a research experience, you're trying to communicate multiple things. Some people, maybe you designed, for example, so you talk about your design. Maybe you develop using a particular technique. You want to talk about that. Maybe you did some data analysis or whatever. You want to talk about that. Maybe you did some, you led the team. You want to talk about that. Like it's still under the same umbrella, but showcasing each of your experience in different lights, if that makes sense. So I've also seen CVs where people are using a lot of I's. The fact that your name is already boldly written at the top of that CV, you don't want to keep using I did this, I did that, because it's just like, we're repeating the same thing. We know that the CV is for you. There's no need to personalize it again. Again, use bullet points. Start each bullet point with an action verb, just like I said. And okay, I want to, again, practical application, show you one CV that I think probably might not be the best sample template, but that was the one I used during my time. So I'm happy to share that. So as you can see here, I wrote a summary. I wrote a profile summary. This is very subjective too. And I think for me, I wrote a summary because I was very specific in, this is who I am as a person. I'm a biomedical engineer. I have this number of experience in this particular space. I've done a lot of things. I've designed technological medical solutions, medical solutions for people in the space. I have proficiency in design and tools, or whatever skills that I've had. And this is what I'm looking to do with the CV. I'm trying to do this and that in this research space. I'm very specific. This is what I've done. This is who I am right now, and this is what I'm looking to do. Very specific, not too bogus, just very, And again, a profile summary tells us that in this whole CV, this is what you should be looking at. Again, not everybody should have that. It depends on how you're trying to, it's not a compulsory section. Because it's an academic CV, then I went straight into my education, which was where I highlighted my education. Then I mentioned, I graduated. Okay, and this, again, I want to emphasize on it because I know people, they just say, I graduated the top of my class. We don't know what the top of your class is. Your class might be a class of 5 people. Just let us know. Give us a benchmark. So one thing you want to do when you're talking about your results is to have a benchmark that people outside can relate to. So I told them that I graduated as the best student and graduated as the second best student in the faculty with over 500 students. So if you picture that in your head, you know that, this is very specific, and you can easily use numbers, because numbers is something almost everyone can relate to. I said I completed modules. I think because I included that here because I was switching from an instrumentation field to a tissue engineering field I was interested in. So I wanted them to know that I still had like some brief, some classes. I had taken some classes in this space, but I know I don't necessarily have experience in that space, if that makes sense. Then I wrote there that my final year thesis. So if you think you don't have research experience, I think that's a blatant lie, actually, because we all do have research experience, because your senior thesis project, which is the one you do in your final year, that's a project. That's a research experience, depending on your field or your specialty. Then I just did some other bunch of things, yada, yada, yada. Then I wrote my work experience. So one thing I want you to note here is that because you're applying to grad school does not mean that your work experience are not relevant. But again, it doesn't mean you have to include all of your experiences in your CV. You want to use the ones that are like more specific to that program or more specific to the research area you're going into. And one thing that I also recommend to do is, because we're coming from a place where a lot of people may not necessarily know what you're trying to do. And secondly, because most of the companies that we work with may not necessarily have footprints in that, online. So one way to go about that is give us a little block of what exactly is that company into. So for this one, I know this name is not probably a name that a lot of people would know. So what I just did was, this is a leading supplier of, medical equipment, such as this sort of products. So for people around here, they will understand what Nihon Codon and StanMed is. So they can easily relate to that. And they are a major supplier of those products, which means, this is a very good or a standardized, standard company, which was what I did. And apart from doing that in most of my work experience, I think in my CV, I try to do that as much as possible. Again, because these people may not necessarily understand the context. So I'm trying to give them a context to which I'm applying most of my experiences. So awards, blah, 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 membership and affiliation. I just noted that down here. But again, I think they've done a CV section. I just wanted to use this as a typical example for everybody. So now we have our CV ready. Then the next thing is to have our SOP ready. So the next question is, what should a good SOP entail? So I've highlighted a few things that I would think your SOP should include. So the first, so your SOP is showing academic interest, highlighting your career goals, you're telling a story. So SOP is actually a storytelling platform. You already have your CV. Now you're trying to tell us that story around that CV, putting in mind your research interests, your research goal, your things that you will be trying to get into. So number one, it should not be generic. At no point in time should you submit a generic SOP. It should be tailored towards a specific school. You remember when we were populating our Excel sheet, we had highlighted some faculties. This is going to be very useful here. We had highlighted some courses. It's going to be very useful in our SOP. It's just a way of, because you cannot just say, I need you to give me $60,000 and you are giving me things that are very, very generic. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give it to you. You have to show me that you've done a lot of homework that is more specific to me, to the funder, the funding sources. So again, your content in your SOP, you're basically rewriting what you've written in your CV, maybe not completely like 100%. You're doing most of, the summary, but again, it should not be the same. Like you should not state, for example, in your CV, you said that I graduated as a top or graduated as the best graduating student in the department. Then in my SOP, I'm telling you that, I graduated as the top 1%. I'm referring to the same thing, but basically using different English, if that makes sense. So you should not repeat both of them. But again, I should be able to match the both of them and see that they make sense and they are in line, they're in tune. So that you should note that. So we want to have a section that includes your introduction. And again, this SOP thing is also very, it's a lot to unpack there, but I think I would assume that you've done a lot of workshop on the SOP too. So I wouldn't really want to go into a lot of detail. But again, in your introduction, you want to give us like a sort of hook, like something that will just catch our attention, bam. Like, hey, this is what I want to talk about, And again, you don't need to be dilly-dallying. I've seen a lot of people dilly-dallying and, bring in a lot of stories and the likes. Try to be as precise, as concise as possible, because we don't have a lot of time. Admission committees do not have a lot of time. I think in the CV as well, I forgot to mention that when you're writing your CV, if you can, please do everything in two into 2 pages, fit them into 2 pages. And secondly, avoid white spaces. Because some people don't have a lot to write, then you'll not be seeing a lot of space. White spaces is communicating to me that you don't have a lot to impute there. Don't do that. And if it is just 2 pages, just have it in 2 pages that is fully covered, no white spaces. If you think, oh, it's you don't have enough to cover 2 pages and it's just 1 page, that's absolutely beautiful too. Make it into 1 page, but make it make sense. Like, don't be, trying to fit into 5 pages, then everything is like scattered, and you have to pay attention to detail. That's very, very important. So in this SOP section as well, you want to answer questions. So in your introduction, you already told us your hook. This is why, on that first paragraph, this is why I'm interested in doing this particular course, and that's it. Then your next paragraph, you're talking about, okay, this why am I even trying to do this course in the first place? Like, you're answering a lot of questions with your SOP. Why this course? You already told us, gave us a background of, oh, this is why this is a problem in the world, and this is why I chose to do it. But why this course? And you also give us a brief of your own background, your academic background, your professional background, and how does that go in tune with what you're trying to solve. You may not necessarily have 100% example of what you're trying to do, but at every point in time, you should show us skills, experiences that make sense, that corroborate whatever you're trying to do. And with that, we have an idea of, okay, they may not necessarily have 100% direct translation, but they do have bulk of experiences and skills that is transferable in the space. So you also want to answer a question of, why this program? Why am I even doing this program? Why am I interested in this program or this school in the first place? Why am I even interested in the United States? You can go to Singapore for all we know, but why do you think that the United States is the best for you to be in? And measuring your career goals. We cannot just, pump into you. What do you want to do after that? We need to know that you are a visionarian, like someone that envisions things. Like, what do you want to do in long term, in medium term, in short term? What are you looking to do? And how does that coincide, or how does that relate with, how we can help you get to that next step? These people are always thinking about the next step. So you also want to put that in your application. Then in all of your paragraph, always use the STAR approach. Always use the STAR approach. The situation, the task, the action, the result. Don't just write, I developed this so thing, and that's it. No, that does not give me an idea. Why did you even have to do that project in the first place? What was the situation surrounding it? What was the task? What was given to you to do? What action did you take to resolve or ameliorate that problem? And what was the results? What did you get out of it? And what's the next step? The results could come in form of, oh, I've made publications, I've made presentations. What exactly are you trying to do with it? So in every of your SOP, we're always looking at what next. Keep that in mind. So we are answering the question of what, why, how, and what next. That is what we are basically answering. And again, you want to review and review and review until there is nothing to review anymore. I mean, there will always be something to review, but always try to review. Again, after writing all of your documents, leave it. So you have to just separate yourself from that document for a little bit, then go back to it. Then now read it from a reader's perspective. You wrote it, right? But do not read it from your own perspective. Read it from a reader's perspective. Think about, okay, if I just saw this SOP and CV, does that thing even make sense to myself? Talk less of it making sense to somebody else. If it does make sense to you, then you're doing a great job. But if it doesn't make sense to you, then you have to do more. And after reading it, give it to probably in your house, someone in your household to read it for you. Once they read it and they say, oh, it does answer a lot of questions, then you're doing a good job. If it doesn't answer those questions and they are very confused with what you've written, then that you've not done a great job, that you have to go back to it. After then, you found people within your jurisdiction, right? Then you can now start messaging. I know UISF has the review board that help with reviews like this. So you can then message them, send your documents to them, but then that you've done your due diligence, you've done your own search before going to the next step. Okay, having said that, so yeah, I also wanted to show us a typical one that I wrote when I was trying to get my admission at Cornell. And for this one, I actually filtered out some things, but I hope it will help for the purpose of this. So I think I wrote maximum of 2 pages. Again, on their website, some of them will always tell you that, oh, do not write a maximum of 1,000 words, write a maximum of 500 words, or maximum of 2 pages. So you want to keep that in mind as well as you're writing your SOP. So from the introduction, so as you can see here, this was my introduction. And I started with cardiovascular disease, blah, blah, blah. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death globally. And I gave them statistics of what was estimated in a particular journal. And that was previous thing that had happened. And there's an estimate that this is going to happen by 2030. And apart from that, it will affect people in developing countries. And I told them that these are some of the solutions that we have in that space. We have solutions to help with like vascular stents and all of those things. We still have this huge problem. It still continues to be a menace. And that's why we're going to have, by 2030, a more demographic suffering from it. And because of all of these things that I've highlighted, this is my reason for pursuing a PhD in this particular field. And I'll write it here at Cornell University. Some of you will miss that. Like in the SOP, you will not see any name of that institution. You have to write it there. This is why I'm interested in Cornell. And I want to specialize in this area. So I think for this paragraph, I always recommend that make it maximum of 10 lines. Don't make it too bogus that it will just burst out. Again, write SOPs that people will be interested in reading, right? So I wrote that for my first paragraph, and I started telling my story. I said during my undergraduate program, I had research experience working on projects. I did my final year thesis. So here, I want to give you an example of this. I had research experience working on this project. This was the project, design of this walking stick for visually impaired. This is the function of the project. And this was what makes it really peculiar, like really a good one. And alongside this was the results that came out of that project. I've been able to tell them, oh, we did this, then did that, and this was the result, and that made it complete. And after that, my final year project was on this. And I think this one I'd edited it, but then I think I gave them a background on why that was even important to do in the first place, like as a research endeavor. And this was the results that we got from it. And yeah, this was what the data was, and this was what we are planning to do with it going forward. Talk about your research in terms of its impacts, and if it has been published, it's a good thing to introduce right here that it was published in the social journal, and you can have that fitted into your CV. Then I realized that maybe some of my experience may not really fit in, my work experience may not really fit in directly, or maybe I didn't have space, I need something, or maybe I just taken that out. So I just told them that, so I think I had one work experience, but I didn't fit that into here. I said, after my graduation, I founded a company, and this was what we're trying to do with the company. We did this, during the COVID-19 pandemic, and this was our contribution, and we got some awards from that. I highlighted that as well. Then I started talking about, apart from, being in the classroom, doing research, working like that, I also have experience with, impacting in the lives of people. So let's not think about SOP as, oh, they're expecting you to be dogmatic. That's not how it works. They want to see the human behind this, the whatever SOP that you have. So what exactly are you doing away from the classroom? Because in places like this, they also appreciate that, the extracurriculars. So you want to put that in and fit it in. So when I finished that, then I told them that these biomaterials, I'm really interested in it. And this is what I've been doing in that space. If you have publications, again, this is something to include right here. And you might also tell us why biomaterials, because for me, I was switching like research space. So I had to find a way to fit that in. And I had to tell them that this is why I'm interested in Cornell. The biomedical engineering at Cornell is attractive to me due to its interdisciplinary. And I didn't even state here that it's an Ivy League, but you could state that if that is what you want. Then I am intrigued. This was why I asked us to note down professor's name by different researchers. I spoke about 2 different professors that I was interested in. I spoke about one professor and told him why I was interested in him. I spoke about a second professor. I said this was why I was interested in him. And since then, I've been following his work. You can also talk about why the country. Some people can mention, you remember the course that we highlighted before, the Summer Immersion program? I think I highlighted it as well as something that really intrigued me, that it's also a reason I wanted to attend the school. This is what I want to do in long term or in short term. I want to be a researcher in this field. This is what I want to develop. In long term, I want to do this and that, and that was it. And I made a note here what you did, why you did it, how, and what impacts did it have. So that's just a summary of how an ideal SOP would look like. But again, remember, I think one thing I didn't mention right here is that when you are checking your SOP, for most of the schools, they usually give you a question prompt. Okay, yeah, I forgot to mention that here. They usually give a question prompt, and you should read that question prompt and try to ensure that you answer all of those questions. So I think for Cornell, they specifically asked me for a long-term goal and a short-term goal. That was why I had to state it out that this is my long-term and this is my short-term. So I had to explicitly mention it. So for some different schools, they will tell you, oh, how did you then contribute to whatever diversity? They will ask you in that question prompt. So when you're applying, for some of them, it will be directly on their websites. They will tell you that you answer this question. For some of them, it is when you start that application that you see that question prompt. So maybe one thing you can do is register on their platform. And on that SOP page where you're supposed to upload your SOP, click on it, see whether they ask any question, then copy that question, paste it in your documents, and start, use that to carve out your SOP as well. Again, ensure that you answer those questions. And do not be generic. So not all SOPs should go in the same direction. So you can always, again, you're telling your own story and your story is different from mine. Okay, I think the time is fast spent. So I think the last one that I have here is recommendation letters. So we all know what recommendation letter is. A recommendation letter is, you can ask from your recommenders. It could be an academic recommendation, someone like your project advisor, your level advisor, your head of department. Again, if you're still an undergrad and you're on this platform, try to maintain a good relationship with these people, because these are the people that will keep referring you. When I applied, I had someone that was the oldest recommender I had. I've known him since 2014. And that was the oldest recommender I used. And this is one interesting thing about recommendation letters. So, because most people just treat recommendation letter as just one-off. To be honest, that's not just one-off. In this part of the world, they take very, very seriously what a recommendation letter is. Very, very important. So you have to ensure that that person you're asking to recommend you, is he writing you the good or the correct recommendation letter? You have to be sure of that. Recommendation letter is not just, oh, my name is this so person, I'm recommending this for this. No, they have to be able to speak to your skill. Why you are a student, what differentiates you from other students. You need to show that they know you as they should, right? They need to show a lot of things that you've done, showcase, your workings, it's a very, I think, I can't remember the numbers, but I'm definitely sure I'm not talking about 10% for recommendation letters. It takes a lot of weight. It carries a lot of weight. And not just for grad school, for most applications in the US, it carries a lot of weight. Recommendation letter is like this, bam. So if you're asking your manager at work, you can, talk for professional, you can talk about your manager, your line managers. Some people use their mentors. And I think for most recommendation letters in the US, we have minimum of 3 for grad school. So you know that you want to look into your network for at least 3 people. They are expecting you that after studying for how long, over 20 years of your life, you should have at least 3 people that can speak to what you do. Then to your recommenders, you want to email them very early. You cannot just wake up one morning and be telling them that, oh, I need my recommendation letter today. No, pre-inform them ahead of time. When I was about to apply, I emailed all of my recommenders to tell them that I'll be applying in this cycle, and this also deadline. But when I start and they email you, then you can go ahead with your recommendation. And for some of these applications, you can actually initiate the recommendation letter process first. So when you are filling in the form, you input their email, they send email to them to start, filling in their part. And once they're doing that, so it doesn't affect your own whatever you're doing. And one interesting thing I want to tell you is that when I did my Cornell application, so like I said, the longest person, the older person that I've known that wrote me a recommendation letter was my level advisor at the time. It's still in fact, I still call him my level advisor because we still have a lot of good relationship. We still have a very cordial relationship. And when he wrote me my recommendation letter, I think I got in. I was applying for a fellowship my first year, and my PI was meant to write me another recommendation letter. And in that recommendation letter that he wrote, it picked words from what my LA had written the year before getting an admission, and said the person that knows her best says this about her, because we've not really worked together at the time. So because I'd only been in his lab for like a couple of months or thereabouts. So it was like the person that knows her best had this to say about her. And when he said that, he submitted that application and I won that fellowship, those people from the fellowship side, when they wanted to cite something about me, that was the same paragraph that was quoted. Just so you know that recommendation letters are very powerful. Not just the first person, not just the second person, but the third time that same recommendation was being said about me. So you want to be able to, have a very high impact recommendation letter. I'm sorry, I'm not sharing that right here, but yeah, you have to take cognizance of it. I know UISF has provided you with templates that you can use. So put in your time, put in the effort to look at those recommendation letters. It's not just one-off. Recommendation letters carry a lot of weight. That's what I'm going to tell you. Tell them the detail of the school, give them the deadlines so that they're aware that this is going to be closing soon. Email them, weekly or thereabout, just to remind them. And again, I think most of us, we are not able to build that good relationship with our recommenders because, you finish school and you just leave them. No, they're humans too. Try to build a good relationship with them. Reach out to them every now and then and just maintain that solid relationship. Okay. So some of the other documents that they might ask, depending on the school, could be a personal statement. I think for Cornell, I also had to write a personal statement. They wanted to know me outside of the classroom. I mean, I'd highlighted one paragraph that talked about that in my academic statement of purpose, but in my personal statement, I had to give them a better idea as to my background, who I am, how I got to that point of my life and what I was looking to do with it, how I've impacted people. A lot of things I had to, just talk about it. They also asked for a diversity statement, depending on, the kind of fellowship they can give you through that. And some fields, depending on the course that you're doing, they can also ask you for a writing sample. So some of the things to note, which will probably be our final slide, would be establish a very good relationship with your program's director of graduate studies and GFAs. Let them see you. Let yourself be known. Show yourself. If they say these people will not tell you like your trouble is too much or your wahala is a lot. No, they want to hear you speak. They want to know you. Be visible. Make yourself known. Ask questions, funding, support. Email them like this. This is what I'm asking about. I'm trying to inquire about this. I did not find it on your website. Could you provide more detail? Email then those professors that you're interested in. Email them. If they respond, fine. If they don't, but at least you've emailed them just to ask a few questions. If you've read their paper and you're a bit confused about some of the things, email them to ask. They will never blame you for asking a question. If, in fact, sometimes you can even ask them like, okay, you're interested in having like a 5 minute or a 10-minute chat with them, coffee chat with them, just email them, Zoom in, and, you guys talk about a lot of things. So again, do not be scared of emailing. Communication, do not be scared of it. Start as early as possible. Yeah, you have to get on, because early admission deadline, I know it's super early, like you have to really get on. I think I can't remember the date for Cornell again, and Cornell does rolling admission basis. So some schools, they do rolling admission basis, meaning that they don't get to the same the deadline to give everybody admission. If they see that this person looks promising, they just give you admission like that. So you will want to target from the very first beginning, so you'll be among the upper part of the pyramid. Target early admission deadlines. Then when you're trying to put out your school together, highlight high tier schools, the middle tier one and the low tier one. I would not recommend you just having high ones and everything will just go like that. No. So the lower ones, those are the things we call a safe school. So always have it like that. Be very strategic when you're positioning yourself, when you're trying to apply, then be adaptive. So you may not get exactly 100% what you want to do. I was lucky enough to get that, but not everybody can. So be very adaptive in terms of your research interest, in terms of the research area, what you're looking to do and all of that. And application process is a really daunting process, we all know. But one thing you want to do is to be willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Like those things are very, very important. Again, it's more like a full-time job. You have to be able to, things that you've not known before, you have to start learning them right now. And the good thing is you can always ask the internet questions and it will always provide a response to you. Before asking or reaching out to anybody first, Google it on your own and ask those Google and check those information. If you're not seeing it, then you can now ask for a better, for something better. I've seen people email me or message me on LinkedIn, on different platforms. Oh, I want to apply to Cornell. How do I go about that? I'm sorry, you've not even checked the website. How am I supposed to come in? You want to ask me questions that are specific, not things that are very generic. Ask me things that are specific, because again, you have what you're doing. I also have what I'm doing. I also have a very busy schedule. So I may not take on a lot of people. Imagine me responding that same question to over 100 people. Which means I will not even be able to get to what I was supposed to do. So yeah, you just have to, get to learn, relearn, and unlearn, like I said. Okay, so I think we've gotten to the end of the session. I want to thank you guys for being here, for staying with me from the beginning to the end. I'm happy to take your questions. So feel free, if you can